Hello and welcome everybody. This morning I'm going to provide you with an overview of Nagios solutions. We'll talk about a lot of different solutions and projects. It's going to be mid to high level. We're not going to spend all of our time above the tree line, but we're not going to be doing any heavy excavating. But hopefully by the end of the session you've got a really good idea of what our enterprise solutions do, what the open source projects that we work with do, and also how they all work together. Initially, that was going to be the main focus, but the pace this year has been super aggressive, and so much has changed so fast that we'll also spend quite a bit of time talking about what's new, all of the changes that have come out, especially in the 2026 releases. So, and I'm going to try to pace myself. We got a lot of ground to cover, but I had a couple of those fresh squeezed juice energy shot things that they have at the hotel, and man, those things will really wake you up. So, but I'll try to tone it down a little bit. All right. So before we dive in, a little bit about me. I am our technical content manager, and that means I do a little bit of everything. A huge focus of mine is on our technical PDFs, the documentation that helps people understand how to use our stuff, how to do very specific things with it, our library site and the articles that are there. I also review a lot of our tech videos and stuff to make sure that everything is accurate and we're actually teaching people how to do things correctly. It's a really cool role because I get to work with every department. The department I'm in, marketing, is kind of a hybrid department, and we do a little bit of everything, and I love it because I get to talk to the devs, and I go check with the support team on something, and then I work with marketing on something, so I really get to bounce around. The days fly by. It's a really cool role. Now, I started at Nagios in 2011, and I'd always wanted to work in IT. At the time, I was working as a wedding DJ, and in the same building that Nagios' first office building was in. And so I got to meet Ethan and a few other people there, and I was blessed to be hired initially as kind of a general sales and processing guy. And at the time, I actually doubled our sales team. So we had one, and when I came on, we had two, which was huge change, 100% increase, right? But for 9 glorious, productive, constructive, and profitable years, I worked, eventually moved into more of a sales engineer role, technical sales. And I loved that. I got to do demos and webinars and help people really understand all of the stuff that our solutions could do and help them with basic technical questions and just kind of walk them through getting a POC up and running. And it was a fun role for me, too, because I was always learning. I was always learning something new every day. I'd do a demo, someone would ask something, I'd go, well, you know, I'm not sure about that, let me check. And then I'd go talk to the devs and support and learn something new. So it was a really great role. And then in 2020, I decided to take some time. I took a 5-year weekend, and it was a great time. As the retired people that I got to know well at the time like to say, every night was Friday night and every day was Saturday for 5 years, and it was really cool. I spent a lot of time with my family, walks in the park, I read a lot of books, I took some naps, made a couple of terrible video games, but had a lot of fun doing it. And I built a small cabin, which you can see here. It might not look like much, but before I built that, I was living in an 8x9 fish house on my land for many years. And so to me, it is a mansion. But enough about me, let's jump in. And we'll start out by just talking a little bit about what we're going to talk about. So, of course, we'll start out with Nagios Core, that without which I wouldn't be standing here talking to you, and none of you would be here listening, because it's the original open source project that started all of this. So we'll start with Core, and then we'll move on to Nagios XI. Nagios Core is the beating heart of XI, and XI is our enterprise class monitoring, alerting, graphing, and reporting solution. Then we'll talk about CSP. Which is kind of an in-between world between enterprise class and free and open source. And so we'll dig into that a little bit. It's a cool project. And then we'll specifically focus on NCPA, the Nagios Cross-Platform Agent, which I love. We'll talk about Nagios Mod Gearman, which was just released this year, and it's something that we've been working on and looking forward to for a long time. And it's a really cool load balancing, load distribution, and distributed monitoring option for Nagios Core and XI. So we'll focus on that. Then we'll dive into Nagios Log Server, which is log collection, analysis, archiving, and alerting. And then we'll talk about Nagios Network Analyzer. I'm really excited to get to that one because the 2026 release, the beta that all of you have an opportunity to try out now, is really cool. It's come a long way, and I'm really excited to talk about it. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the advancements that have happened this year, kind of in my purview on documentation and our web presence and things like that. And then we'll leave some time for questions. So before we do, though, I'm sure that almost every one of you have met Paul Singh, who's our Chief Cultural Officer. And I'd like to, he was kind of the unstoppable force that led to the conference. He was a huge driver in making all of this happen. And so I'd like to offer a big hand for Paul Singh for getting us all here. Woo! And another thing I'll say, too, before we dive in, is that I really couldn't have picked a better time to come back. The pace this year has been super aggressive. No stone has gone unturned. I mean, we've looked everywhere. The solutions themselves, our web presence, our documentation, our policies, our departments, like everything has just been moving forward at a rapid pace. And not only did that make this an excellent time to come back, but also to come back for the first time we've had a World Conference in a decade was really cool. Getting to reconnect with old friends from the old days when we used to have conferences, getting to put a name to some of the faces that have just been an email signature for 15 years, getting to learn, as Ethan said in the keynote, what people are actually doing with the tools. So really fortunate to come back, and when I decided to go back to work, I couldn't imagine working anywhere but here. You know, this was my first stop, and I was blessed again to be brought back. And now here we go. Now we're doing a conference presentation. So, Nagios Core, where it all began. Monitoring and alerting. It's a powerful engine. It's open source. For 25 years, it's been enabling people to monitor basically anything that uses electricity, and you can do it 100 different ways. So it's extremely capable and versatile in terms of monitoring and alerting you that something is going wrong. It is configured with flat text on the command line, which can kind of be a roadblock for some people, but once you get the swing of it, it's definitely doable. It's very capable. And I know a lot of the people here use Core and have been using it for, in some cases, literally 25 years, which is really great. So it's very capable, very powerful, but it can have a fairly steep learning curve, especially for people who aren't really dug into the Linux and Unix world. It does have a basic web UI, which you can see here. You can see data and interact at a very, very basic level with the Core engine from the interface. But that's about the extent of it. It's showing you status data. It's got some very, very basic reporting on status data, and all of the actual work of telling the Core engine, go check this server, send me a notification if CPU goes to this point, is all done on the command line. Another huge strength of Core and of XI, because it's the engine for XI, is the Nagios Exchange. And I actually very rapidly had to update the screenshot because we just released the new Nagios Exchange. And you can log in now, you can create an account, you can manage your projects. Like, it's come a long way. It looks really cool and modern. And this is the place where, as you can see here, 4,387 plugins that have been contributed by the community are available on the Exchange. And plugins are how you check a specific thing. It could be C, Perl, Python, Ruby. It could be a bash script. It's basically just a way to interact with something and return a code to Nagios so that the Core engine knows if the check you ran is okay or warning or critical. And to have pushing 4,500 of those just freely available is really cool. And I'm really thankful to everyone that has made a plugin, put it on the Exchange. And I was just talking with someone earlier who incorporated another open source project that was on the Exchange and actually ended up sending a gift basket to the developer. That was really cool. So people definitely get a lot of value out of the things that are on the Exchange. And the longevity is a big part of that. You know, Core has been around so long. The Exchange has been up, I don't know for how many years. And it's really great to have all of those resources available. So that's Nagios Core, very powerful, but kind of a steep learning curve, but you can monitor literally anything with it. And then we go to Nagios XI, which is our enterprise class monitoring, alerting, graphing, and reporting tool. So it's fully supported and regularly updated, and it makes all of the power that the Core engine has accessible and incorporates a lot of other open source projects, for example, to collect performance data and provide graphing capabilities. So it hooks together a bunch of popular Core projects, and you basically just install XI, and you're up and running. And it's got built-in reporting, and especially when it comes to configuring things, it makes it a lot easier. In one part, because of the monitoring wizards. They're a simple step-by-step approach to monitoring a lot of common things. Network equipment, applications, servers, databases. You're basically just telling Nagios how to connect to the host and then picking from a cultivated list of services that you typically want to check on it. And the screenshot, I think I went to like the max zoom Firefox would allow, the one on the far left, to try to get as many wizards as I could in a screenshot. That was at like 30%, and I couldn't even get half of them. So there's over 90 wizards. So as soon as you fire up XI, you've got access to a quick, easy, accessible way to set up monitoring of all sorts of very common, useful things, and those are always being expanded. XI also has the Core Config Manager, which is the advanced configuration GUI, and that's this screenshot here. So you can actually dig in the UI to all of the settings that you'd be making in the core configs and interact with your host and service and group objects and really dig in. The Core Config Manager also has some really cool bulk management tools, like bulk modifications, where say you want to change one of the ARGs, or you want to change the check interval from 5 minutes to 4 minutes on 1,000 hosts or services. You can just select what you want to modify, hit a button, and boom, you've just in bulk changed all of that. So the CCM is where you can really dig into the core engine. Now, as far as what has changed, a lot. 2025 was a huge year for XI. The first thing I'll highlight is all of the bug fixes. There was one release about mid-year where there were over 100 bug fixes in one release. So tons of stuff just got looked at, got fixed, and there were a lot of releases, not quite that huge, but a lot of things were remedied, and a lot of improvements. We added some new wizards. There is a new Kubernetes wizard, and I'll actually highlight that coming up. There are ways to plug into Zabbix and Prometheus exporters to hook that data into Nagios and have it all in one place. And then Nagios Mod Gearman has been a long time coming. But it exists now, it's documented, it works, and it's really cool to start hearing the feedback. The people that are using it have rolled it into their environments and are getting a lot of value out of it, and we will dig into that one too. And then all of this work kind of set the stage for 2026. And 2026, which came out last week, it's brand new, was all about dashboards, dashboards, dashboards. Many of you use Nagios XI, you have been for many years, and you're familiar with the dashboards. And I mean, I can make an XI, what's now called a legacy dashboard, look really cool. Like if you put a little work into it, you can make them show you a lot of really cool stuff. But the smart dashboards are now in React, and actually resizing things, moving things around is just so much smoother and easier. It's just like Nagios Log Server 2024 R2 and beyond provide in terms of the dashboards. So a lot of work went into that. My favorite part of all of it, even beyond just the smooth, fast, easy-to-use React dashboards themselves, are the dashboard wizards. Basically, you just fire up the wizard, and it's available for smart dashboards and legacy. So if you want to make an older style dashboard, you can. And you just pick a host or a group, you hit a button, and boom, you've got a dashboard. It's got a tree map. It's got graphs. It's showing you a bunch of cool stuff. And a ton of work went into that. And also the home page was redesigned as well. A lot of thought was put into making it as useful as possible for a brand new user. So you just fired up XI, you dive into the interface, right on the home page, you've got quick links to a bunch of things that you're probably going to do, like contacts and notifications, stuff like that. Monitoring wizards, the most popular ones. So right out of the box, even if you have no frame of reference, you fire up, say you download the OVA, you fire it up, you dive in, and you've got access to the information you need to get started and do the most important things. So that was a really nice change too. And another thing I'll do throughout the presentation is highlight other presentations that might be of interest based on each of the topics. And so at 2:40 in track 3, we've got Jack, Zach, and Coleman. They are going to talk about the dashboards. They're really going to dig into the work they've done on the dashboards, the capabilities. So that'd be a good one if you want to learn more about the evolution of the dashboards. And then AI-driven monitoring automation for XI with Ayub. You've probably heard in a few talks reference to some of the AI work we're doing, and he's the one driving most of that. And so he'll be talking about what he's been working on, what it might do, and some of the cool stuff that's in the works. So that'd be a good one. That's at 3:40 in track 3 he'll be talking, so those are a couple that would be really good to check out. So one thing that also changed, I believe it was 2024 R2, was the SNMP walk jobs. Previously, what you would do is you would go to the SNMP walk wizard, and configure all of your walk settings in the wizard at that moment and set it up and enter all of the SNMP connection data and the top-level OID you want to focus on and all of that right in the wizard. And it was kind of a cumbersome approach. It wasn't a really clean approach to it. But now there's the SNMP walk jobs. So you actually set up the jobs ahead of time. You define the IP or the host name. You enter all of the SNMP data, you save it, and then when you jump into the SNMP walk wizard, you just select those settings from the drop-down, and boom, it's all ready to go. So that's a huge time saver for people that do want to do an SNMP walk, find out what's available, pick various things to monitor. It's a really cool and continuing to evolve. And then the Kubernetes wizard. So K8s, K3s, it connects a few different ways. You can use the Kubernetes API. There's also a kubectl and kubeconfig option. And it uses the NCPA agent, which we'll talk about shortly, and gives you a way to monitor some really useful metrics on a Kubernetes cluster. Active nodes, daemon sets, unbound PVs, PVC, TLS, stateful sets. And so once you install NCPA and a plugin, you just run the wizard and you're able to monitor that. And I know demand has been steadily increasing for a way to check Kubernetes. And so it's really cool that that's available too. And that was rolled in 2024 R2 as well. One that you might want to check out is Eric Lloyd. That's at 140 in track 1. He's going to talk about seriously advanced Nagios XI configuration. So seriously advanced. So if you want to dig in, that'd be a really good one to check out and find out more about seriously advanced Nagios XI configuration. So beyond the monitoring itself, so XI makes what the core engine can do much more accessible. Whether you've got a Linux background or not, although that always helps. But it also provides a lot more. It's XI itself, the acronym, is for Extended Insight. And that's a big part of what it gives you. It's not just making it easier to check all the things and get your emails and send SNMP traps when something happens. It's giving you a way to look at that data. So out of the box, it's automatically collecting and storing things like performance data for 4 years, just right out of the box in RRDs. So older data is averaged and isn't quite as granular, but you've got 4 years of data just automatically out of the box. It starts to collect and store, along with state history, same concept. It'll store that for 4 years. And it gives you a lot of ways to use that data. Tons of different reports. Like there's an example of the SLA report, just to find out, for example, if you hit 5 nines on something you're monitoring. The reports can be scheduled, they can be exported, and they're really easy to create. And then things like capacity planning, which enables you to project future usage based on the historical data you've collected. There's a few algorithms built in. By default, it uses whole winters, and it basically just looks at the historical data, and then in the graph, so in this example, historical is in green, and then what's projected to happen in the future is in yellow. Not only can you visualize that, like in this dashboard, but you can alert on it. So you can say, if the projection says that within the next 2 weeks, memory usage is going to exceed my threshold, send me an alert. And that way you can actually get ahead of things and actually be alerted before the problem happens and do remediation before an actual alert ever happens. So really cool features like that. There's also a multi-tenancy layer that goes far beyond what Core offers, where basically you either can or cannot see an object when you hit the interface. In XI, you've got a really granular set of settings so that each user you give access to the system can see and do the things that you want them to. So for example, you can enable someone to see everything, or like in Core, limit them only to the objects that they are a contact on. You can define who can do things like access the Core config manager, configure things. You can make a read-only user with a click. So you can just say, well, like for example, a manager user. Somebody who just wants to see data, you can say, well, here you go. Here's your read-only user. Log in, see everything that you need to, but don't do anything. XI also has a really nice REST API, and we'll dive into that in the next slide. But yeah, it's got the multi-tenancy, it's got reporting, it's got really nice graphs. And this screenshot here is actually an example of the new React Smart Dashboards. So this is one, this is for localhost. Another cool thing we did in 2026 is set it up so that historically localhost has been monitored, but there wasn't really a dashboard made for it. Now out of the box, not only are you monitoring localhost and have a really cool looking dashboard just right when you log in, but it also monitors Google. So you've got a couple of hosts set up right out of the gate, and as soon as you fire it up, you're collecting performance data and state history, and you can actually start to make use of that data right away without having to even run a monitoring wizard, which is really cool. But yeah, this is the new React dashboard, the new graphs, the new tree map, some of the status displays, donut charts, a lot of cool stuff. And so that's just an example of what those look like now. Even farther beyond monitoring, there's a ton of integrations. So first off, XI has a lot of integration points with the other solutions in the Nagios stack. So it can integrate with Nagios Log Server, Nagios Network Analyzer for things like alerting and collecting data from them and giving you a lot of information about what's going on across all of your Nagios deployment, not just in XI. It also has built-in integrations with NRDP. So it's got an NRDP listener just hooked in and ready to go, configurable in the UI. And you can start kicking NRDP data up to it. Nagios Mod Gearman is now rolled in as well. The Nagios Cross-Platform Agent has built-in wizards, and we'll actually talk more about that. I'll hold off on talking more about that right this second. But it has Slack, Discord, Azure Active Directory. Single sign-on with AAD was just rolled in recently. That was a big request that we got for a long time, and so that's another one where I'm really glad that we've got that available now, and something that we continue to work on and make better. The REST API, which I mentioned, it allows you to fetch data about the status of what's going on and roll that into other systems. It allows you to do programmatic configuration. So it gives you a hook for automation tools that you might want to employ to do automated provisioning and things like that. And then it gives you a lot of data about the performance of your XI system itself, all available in the REST API. And for those of you that might have just dove into XI, it's not really readily apparent, but if you go to the help menu and then the documentation section of that, there's full documentation for the entire REST API. So every endpoint, everything you need to know to use it is in there. And then there's business process intelligence. It's one of my favorite components of XI. It allows you to monitor complex processes and clusters and things like that, not just to be alerted when one very specific thing breaks, although that's possible, but really to get a feel for the health of the entire group and then get that critical notification when the group itself is in danger of failing. A great example is to monitor something like a log server cluster, where maybe you're running a multi-instance cluster, and now you're going to be assigning roles and stuff if you went and saw Jason's talk yesterday. But maybe if one instance goes down, that's worth a warning, but it's not really a critical failure yet. The cluster can still continue to do its job. And you can set it up so that anything that you see the target next to, that's an essential member. So for example, on this instance, I've got it set up so that Logstash, that service, is an essential member. If that breaks, it bubbles up and affects this particular part of the BPI group, goes into a warning state, as you see on the upper left. But if that's in warning, but everything else in the group is still okay, all the other instances in my cluster, it's not going to send me a critical yet. So you can say if a certain percentage of things are working, it's still functional, but if a certain number of things or certain essential members break, it's falling apart, there's smoke pouring out of it, and I definitely want a warning notification. So it's a really cool way to monitor clusters, monitor complex applications, things that rely on a variety of systems and services to function. It's a nice way to get that insight and then alert more intelligently on that kind of thing. Then there's tools like Nagviz, which allows you to use basically any image you want to as a background and then put active icons on top of that background. This is just a cool looking example, probably not super practical. This is what networks will look like when AI takes over. But here's the icons. You can hover over them to get deeper data. And Nagviz is something that's been built into XI forever, but hasn't gotten a lot of love over the years. And now some development has actually gone into beefing it up and making it do cooler things. One nice thing about it now is that you can right-click on your map to get to the object edit menu. You used to have to go up to the top, hit a drop-down, go to a sub-menu. Now you can just right-click and boom, you can add pin something new on your map. Another cool thing that was just rolled in is actions. That enables you, you might be familiar with the quick actions capability in XI. So you've got event handlers, which are automated scripted actions that do a thing when something happens. And then you've got quick actions, which show up in your status detail page and give you a button to click to restart a service, restart a system. That's now rolled into Nagviz. And the initial foray into it is a way to reboot Windows and Linux systems. But basically, you go, oh, that's critical. You click on it, and then you just click a link and enter your, I believe it uses NCPA. It's actually something that I still need to document. It's very new, but it is built in. And you enter your NCPA credentials, and boom, you're executing a script on that system right from your NagViz display. So it's really cool. NagViz is an awesome open source project. And when you fire up XI, it's just built right in, right out of the box. Some presentations that might be worth checking out. So you've got the visualizing data with NagViz. So the crew that's been working on it, Doug, Emmett, Igor, and Sam, are going to talk about what they've done, what they've improved. And for all of these, too, especially when it's Nagios people presenting, that's also a really cool opportunity. If you would like to tell them, I really wish it did this thing, that's the place to do it. You know, there's a Q&A at the end and say, well, it would be awesome if NagViz did X, Y, and Z. That's going to be at 1:40 in track 2. And then business intelligence monitoring, Josh Manley's going to do a presentation on BPI, and that's at 3:40 in track 2 if you want to dig into BPI a little bit more. All right, Nagios CSP. It rides the line between an enterprise tool and an open source tool. I'll be honest, it's actually something that since I returned late last year has been kind of off my radar. It's something that everybody wanted to make sure I talked about, but I've really been focusing on the other tools and hadn't really even looked at CSP until very recently. But I thought the best way to talk about CSP would just be to show you what is in the download. And so first off, it's a free edition of Nagios XI for personal use. You can monitor up to 10 nodes, all the services you want to. So it's a really nice way to spend nothing and use all the cool capabilities that XI's got built in. It's a really great introduction to XI, and not just to XI, but the entire world of Nagios. You've got, for example, it includes the tarball of Nagios plugins, Nagios Core 459, a bunch of documentation on plugins, the NCPA agent, other projects and agents like NRPE, NSCA, NDO utils. So what I really think CSP is, to me, as I looked at it, and especially because it includes things like this. This is like 600 or 700 pictures of the Nagios crew for the entire time Nagios has been around. So it's just a bunch of really cool kind of random stuff. But I really think CSP, to me, is kind of an attempt to answer the question, what is Nagios? So if somebody says, what is Nagios? Say, download this file and look at what's in it and try to run some of this stuff. And that'll be a really good intro to what Nagios is. But yeah, it's free. You can download it. And I believe there are also some commercial support options if you use it and go, I really want to roll this into my business. Let's try it out. But a really good introduction to the open source world and the enterprise side of all the Nagios solution stack is CSP. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that quick. NCPA and Nagios Mod Gearman. The Nagios cross-platform agent, I really like. Its genesis was actually at a conference, I don't know, 2012, 2013. One of the attendees said, why are agents so difficult? Why are they such a pain? You know, there's one for this and one for that, and this one's hard to configure, and this one does everything I want, but it's missing one thing another one does. And so we made NCPA. And a big part of it was to try to make an agent that's cross-platform. So you can install it on Windows, you can install it on Linux, you can install it on OS X. And as of 3.2, which just came out, experimental support for Solaris was rolled back in. And that was big. NCPA v2, actually, some of the older versions of it have AIX and Solaris support, so that is still a working option. The legacy downloads are available. But now, in the latest cutting-edge version of NCPA, you've got an option to start monitoring Solaris again, which is really cool. So now you've got one agent that you can use across everything. Another great thing about it is that in XI specifically, the wizards are a smart wizard. So you install NCPA on the system, you run the wizard, and it gives you the ability to monitor all the regular stuff, drive space and CPU and memory, but it also shows you all of the services and processes that are running on the system. So it does a scan and brings back a big directory of everything that's actually shaken on the system, and then you can pick from that. So it gives you specific context for what's happening on that system, and then you can choose from relevant results to decide what you want to monitor. And that's a really cool capability. It's got a really nice check API built in. So actually, first I'll talk about the web GUI, because that's part of it. But it's got a web UI that you can hit on each of the systems that it's installed on that provides you with things like real-time performance graphs for CPU and memory, disks, and interfaces. So you can see just real-time moving graphs of what's going on. So it's a really cool way to just say, I want to see what's happening like right this second, and boom, you just hit the UI and you can check it out. It's also built into Log Server right out of the box. And not only is it built into Log Server, but it's got a couple of cool plugins rolled in. One is Check JVM Heap. So Log Server likes to, I'll talk about it now. We'll talk about Log Server itself in a little while, but Log Server, OpenSearch specifically, basically grabs as much memory as it can right out of the gate. And so whether it's using it or not, and that's the JVM heap, the Java virtual machine that it's running in. And so if you're just monitoring raw memory on Log Server, it's always going to be spiking. You're going to be like, wow, memory's 80, 90% all the time. What is it doing? But that's not accurate. So Check JVM Heap actually tells you how much of the memory that it's scooped up is actually being used, and that's built right into NCPA, which is built right into Log Server. So we talked about the smart wizards, and then the Check API is really cool. You can actually leverage all the API endpoints that are used to check things with NCPA and see that data in a lot of different ways right in the UI. One cool thing you can do with it is to run it as a Nagios check and actually see the command and the output that would happen if you made it a Nagios check, which can be really helpful for places like Nagios Core, where you just want to run it, see what the actual command would be to check that thing, and then drop that into your configs. So NCPA is really cool. That said, as much as I love NCPA, it is certainly not the only Nagios agent. There are a ton of them. And one in particular I want to highlight is NS Client++. It's a legendary Windows agent that provides a ton of depth on Windows systems. And if you want to learn more about NS Client, the developer, Michael Medin, is here. He's actually up next here in track 1, so you don't even have to leave your seat if you want to learn more about NS Client. He'll be doing the next presentation, and that'd be, especially if you manage a lot of Windows systems and want to check a lot of specific things, that would be a really good option. And we've also updated the NS Client Wizard in XI over the course of the year, and now it uses the NRPE option, which is the modern approach with NS Client. So I'm sure he'll tell you more about that, but you can use the NS Client Wizard right in XI, and if you want to learn more about that, that'll be coming up right after this. So, Nagios Mod Gearman is awesome. It's so cool that it exists now, and a ton of work went into making Nagios Mod Gearman. As Ethan had mentioned in the keynote, there was a window there where the original Mod Gearman didn't work in Core anymore, and so, of course, didn't work in XI. And it's just such a cool tool. So it can do load reduction. You've got the Mod Gearman server module lives on your Nagios server. That's kind of the brain of Gearman. And then you've got the worker module that you install on just some Linux system or VM somewhere. And what it basically does is it takes over executing the check plugins, so the core engine doesn't have to do it. And that's a huge resource hog on the XI or the core side. And so having another system do that provides a way to significantly reduce load on your Nagios server and get more checks out of a Core or an XI server. So it works for Core 4.5+, it works for XI 1.2+. We've got good documentation on getting it working in older versions of XI prior to the recent ones. And it's built right into XI 2024 R2+. It's just rolled right in and ready to go. And it's actually got a config editor capability. So you can manage your workers, you can manage the server module, the brain settings right in the XI UI, so it's really convenient. And then for the workers, you basically just punch in the info and credentials to connect to it via SSH, and you can deploy those workers right to the target system. You can sync your settings, you can make updates and resync, and so it makes it really easy to manage everything. From an architecture perspective, one thing I'll mention is that Gearman itself can function perfectly and do all of its work as long as the worker systems have an inbound connection to your Nagios server by default on port 4730. So Gearman can spin like a top, work like a charm as long as you've got that. To use the configuration editor, the manage workers function in XI, you do actually need an inbound network path. It uses SSH, so port 22, to that target worker system. So the moral of the story is you can use it whether you've got an inbound path to the worker or not, but you do need that to use the UI side of things. But it's a really great tool, not just for load reduction, but also for distributed monitoring. So there's a federated option where you've got a Nagios server at a remote location. Maybe it's pushing data up with something like NRDP to a centralized system. That's a nice approach, but Gearman is an even cooler approach. You just fire up a Gearman worker at the remote site, and then you define what groups or individual objects that worker is responsible for. And so I think it's like once a second. It's very rapid, but it uses very little data. The worker is going to check in with your Nagios server and check the queue. And it goes, oh, okay, so this host group needs to be checked right now. Boom, it executes the checks of the local objects that it has direct network access to. And then, boom, shuffles the results back upstream to your Nagios server, and they appear there as if your Nagios server had done the checks itself. So it's a really cool tool. It's built right in, and again, it works for Core, and it works for XI, and it's got the really cool UI option that's in XI 2024 R2+. So let's talk about Nagios Log Server. It is a log collection, analysis, archiving, and alerting platform. Historically, it was built on the Elk stack, but a ton has changed this year, and we'll talk about that. So it is the dawn of a new age. It is a huge year for Log Server. So much change. Under the hood, Logstash got updated from 2 to 8, huge jump. Elasticsearch got shifted to OpenSearch, and the huge advantage of that is that it employs ECS, the Elastic Common Schema, which determines, it's a hierarchical tree structure that's employed to parse your data into meaningful fields. And it's a really beautiful approach, and it's going to make finding the exact log data you want more accessible and make it a lot easier to figure out how to dig in and get the very specific thing that you're looking for when you run a query or you're creating a dashboard panel. So that under the hood, there were some huge changes. The only downside to that, and it had to happen, it absolutely had to happen to make Log Server shine, but that you won't be able to do an inline upgrade from Log Server 2024 R1 and before to the new Log Server because of that change is one of the big differences. But there is a migration path. There's a nice migration tool built in. You'll at least right now be able to move your historical data and some of your user data over, and they are working on enabling it to shuffle things like dashboards over, which would be really cool. But as it stands right now, you can move your historical log data over, and we've also tried to make it a really nice, on the licensing side of things, where you can continue to run an old Log Server cluster and fire up the new one and run them side by side for a while as you shuffle everything over to the new setup. So that's the kind of the under the hood stuff. And on the UI side, just a complete overhaul. It's a new React UI. It's got just everything that you would want out of a Log Server system. This is an example of an Apache dashboard using GeoIP info and showing you actually where the hits are coming from. It's got Apache hits, status codes, events over time. They're React dashboards like the new ones in XI, so if you want to resize something, you just grab it, squeeze it in, and if you want to move it to the left, you move it over, and everything else just kind of automatically rearranges itself, trying to make sense of where you, the user, want to put that particular panel. And in the old Log Server, you had settings like a ton of settings for a panel like span and stuff to figure out what size you wanted it to be. Once you got the hang of it, you could do anything with it, but it wasn't, I wouldn't call it accessible the way that dashboards used to work. They certainly are now. And this particular dashboard, I will give credit where it's due, is largely inspired by what's kind of a legendary dashboard, the Better Apache dashboard that Eric Lloyd created a long, long time ago. And so this is kind of the new Log Server version of that particular dashboard. So a lot of changes on the front end too. And the changes in 2026 weren't quite, 2024 R2 set the stage for everything that happened in 2026. But one big change in 2026 was the new simple search homepage. Ethan calls it the Hasbro interface. It's basically a Google search bar that you punch in what you want to find, and it brings you to a simplified dashboard showing you all of the matching events, and then you can pick from other things. I think the huge value of it is that it will enable you to make users who aren't familiar with Lucene queries, really don't know how to dig into the data, but you can actually set up preset templates which will just appear as buttons on the homepage. So they're like, I need to look for 404s. How do I do that? You just give them a button, they click it, and boom, it brings them to the data that they're looking for. So it will enable advanced admins to really dig in more and do more with the data because of things like going to OpenSearch, and it will also open up Log Server to somebody that really doesn't know what they're doing, but does need to see important data periodically. So that's really cool. OpenSearch went from 2 to 3, which when I saw that in the changelog and went to update my personal Log Server setup, I was like, oof, I wonder how long this is going to take. and it literally took 38 seconds to upgrade. So that was a pleasant surprise. It was just like, boom, done. So that's great. We're running the most secure, most recent version of OpenSearch now. And one thing that I've got to talk about, it's kind of a sore spot for me, but I'm going to bring it up. I would like to bid a fond farewell to the giant green Add Log Source button. It's been with us for a long time. You couldn't miss it. If you wanted to add a log source, push the button and boom, away you go. But that has been moved, and I believe in an upcoming screenshot I've got it. But basically now, instead of that being there, and also in 4 or 5 other places all over the UI, you could not miss adding a log source in the UI. It's just been moved into the main nav bar. There's just a little green circle with a plus sign in it that you click to get to the directory of instructions for adding all the various systems you might want to collect log data from. So that was a nice change. Goodbye, green button. It's been good working with you. And a lot more happened. So that's the new stuff that happened in 2024 R2. It's been a huge year for log server, and it's been really cool to see it evolve. All the 2024 R2 stuff started to happen just as I returned. And so one of my first projects was to start overhauling all the documentation for 2024 R2 live as the builds were evolving. I was like, woo, here we go. It was a lot of fun, but it was a moving target for sure for a while. It was really great to see the first release and be like, here it is, this is what it will be. Beyond just giving you a way to collect log data, archive it as long as you'd like to, assuming you've got sufficient storage to do so, and analyze the data, it also does alerting. So just like you'd be familiar with in Core and XI, you can say, if certain events are detected in the log, send me an email, kick something up to like an XI server with NRDP, kick out an SNMP trap, and then the analysis part. There is the simple home dashboard, but there are the actual dashboards that we've talked about where you can really arrange things and using queries, define exactly what fields you want to be reflected in it, and then see a bunch of really nice visualizations that give you a quick one-stop look at what's going on with the log data. So it's been a huge year for log server, and it's just so cool to see what it's evolved into in such a short amount of time. So that's log server. And I did want to show the light theme as well. I know not everybody likes dark theme, so I just want to let you know there is a nice light theme. It looks really cool, and actually now one change, I don't think I got to updating the screenshots for it, no, but now at the upper right of the UI, you just click a drop down, and it gives you quick access to the ability to flip between simple and advanced homepage, so you can go back to a new dashboard-style version of the homepage, but you can also flip the themes, so it's really easy to get at. You don't have to go to your user settings and scroll down. It's just right there in a drop-down. You can flip from light to dark if you want to. So that's really nice. But yep, there's a light theme. Looks really cool. And now Nagios Network Analyzer, which I'm not at all excited to talk about. Almost nothing has changed. I think we should probably just finish it now. Anybody got a question? No. Yeah, we're good. So historically, Network Analyzer has done one very important thing. So you're monitoring your network gear with Nagios XI. You see you've got a ton of traffic on an interface. Obviously, the next logical question is, well, what's happening to cause all of this traffic? Let's dig in. So as a starting point, Network Analyzer gives you a useful starting point with the flow data. NetFlow, SFlow, JFlow, IPFix, a lot of different flow protocols it can use. And it helps you understand where the traffic is coming from, where it went to, and what ports were traversed in the communication. So that's down a layer. It's a really useful capability. But historically, that is all it did. And I know often during the time that I was in sales, people would say, OK, that's great. Now I know what was talking to what. But what was in the packets? What was actually specifically happening? They want to dig down deeper. And now Network Analyzer is moving towards being able to answer that question as well. So it was pro with the flow, and now it's much mo. So here is a look. And so first off, visually, complete overhaul. It's a new React front end that was created by the devs. They put a lot of work into it. And it's got awesome dashboards, just like XI has now, just like Log Server 2024 R2 Plus has. And also, I think it's been mentioned a few times, but a lot of work is also going into making sure that there's some consistency. So if you're using a dashboard and Network Analyzer, you'll be using it just like or close to how you would be in XI or you would be in Log Server. So you'll feel at home in each of the tools So if you fire up Network Analyzer for the first time, but you've been using XI for a while, you'll go, oh, okay, I know how these dashboards work. But this is an example of one of the new dashboards. It's got a couple of cool panels. There's a lot of different types. I really like this one. This looks really cool. And just recently, Nmap was built in too. So here's a bar chart of hosts up, ports open, ports closed, ports filtered on a scheduled automatic Nmap scan that I've got my system running every 15 minutes. So you can visualize a lot of stuff, and you have a whole lot more to visualize now too, because other tools have been rolled in, like Wireshark, like Nmap, like Suricata. And as has also been mentioned, right out of the box, I should have included a picture of the home page right on fresh install, but I didn't get to it. But basically, when you first fire it up, your entire home page is just 4 quadrants that explain to you. On the upper left, it'll talk about flow data. And so you can click that to drill down and start adding sources to get your flow data. And then it includes a quadrant for Wireshark, Suricata, and Nmap. You can click through on any one for quick details about why is this important, why would I want to install it, what does it do? And then it provides a list of commands that you can run. You can just hit the copy all button, drop it in the CLI, hit enter, and away you go. So it's very quick within 30, 45 minutes, even for a brand new user. You can have all of these integrations rolled into Network Analyzer and working. So it's really accessible, really quick. The Nmap and Suricata installs are super quick, like seconds, and they're just ready to go. The Nmap and Wireshark. The Suricata one, it's a pretty big chunk of commands. You'll be living in the matrix for a little while that thing installs itself. But very easy to get up and running. And then once you do, your homepage is populated with quick visualizations of things going on in each of the tools. So it's easy to roll them in the first place to integrate them with Network Analyzer. And then the integrations integrate with each other in a bunch of different ways. So you can do things like you can drop in PCAPs from other tools and start to look at those in, for example, Suricata, looking for alerts. And then you can shuffle that data over to Wireshark and back and forth. You can run an Nmap scan and then go to the details of the scan and say, this particular IP, let's see if that pops up over in Wireshark. And you can also do alerting. There's a way to alert on Suricata signature IDs. So you see a signature ID related to an alert based on a rule set in Suricata, and you go, well, I'd like to know if that happens, like real time. Send me a notification if that happens. And that's possible. You can also do, right now it's really basic Nmap. I think it's open and closed ports, but it's a beta, so the focus is just on making sure that we're doing one thing with each of the things, and then we can expand on that. But there will be alerting based on your scheduled Nmap scans too. And then there's some other cool stuff you can do. Like for example, you can look at a packet and you can go, oh, okay, let's run whois for the source or destination IP, or reverse DNS for those. Run an Nmap scan of this data, or from Suricata, search Wireshark for data in which you've captured with Suricata. So it's a really cool ecosystem now of all the tools talking to all the tools. And to me, the coolest thing about it is that it makes it so quick and easy to start using these really powerful network security tools. I'll be honest, I didn't really know what Wireshark and Suricata were before I started working with the devs to start documenting this tool. I always thought Wireshark had a cool name, but I really didn't know what it did. But now, having an opportunity to document all of this and work with the developers, there is a ton of value in these, and they are right at home alongside flow data. So I'm really excited to see how Network Analyzer evolves leading up to the release. And I hope that all of you take advantage of the opportunity to fire up the beta, see what it does, and tell us what you think of it, and what you'd like to see in it, what we could improve, what's working. That would be really cool. So much change. Like I said, the dashboard, Suricata, Wireshark, and Nmap integrations integrating with integrations, and eventually we're going to start integrating with the integrating integrations. So it's going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is to see how we start to integrate with log server and XI, how the whole ecosystem starts to use this data and display it and leverage it for alerting and stuff. Will be really cool to watch it evolve. But yeah, a huge year for Network Analyzer. And I was really surprised personally because log server blew me away. When I came back and started to see what we were doing with log server, I was like, wow, this is the future. This is really cool. So I thought that would kind of be like like the shining star of the year. That would be like the big thing. That would be the coolest. But over the last couple of months, that's been displaced by Network Analyzer. Maybe just because it's newer and fresher in my mind, but just to see how dramatic a change and an update and an improvement is really cool. It's really cool. It's turned into a really cool solution, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Here is a quick look at the overview pages of Nmap, Wireshark, and Suricata, and a quick look at the various menus too. So Suricata on the upper left, you've got your overview page, just showing you quick alert data, and you can click through on these to kind of a filtered list of alerts that are matching that. Like not suspicious traffic isn't too exciting, but below that is like, I forget what it's called, like sort of suspicious traffic or something, the yellow one. You can run an active scan. And just like you can in Suricata, you can also run an active scan in Wireshark in the live capture menu. But to be clear, currently that scan is being run on the primary network interface of your Network Analyzer server. So it's not scanning the interfaces on exterior systems, it's just checking that local interface and comparing it to things like your alerts that you've got set up in Suricata and stuff like that. But yeah, another cool thing about the Suricata side is that there are a bunch, I think it's 26 or 36 really popular rule sets built in, both open source and commercial rule sets. So ET Open is the one that's activated out of the box, but you can just basically hit a toggle and turn on other rule sets to incorporate those into your scan of the data that you're collecting. And then Wireshark, same thing. You can run a live capture if you want to, scoop up all the packets. You can look at your capture history to kind of dig into that data. And it's got the ring buffer, which was very new too. That's like over the last maybe 3 weeks that evolved. And that enables you to say, Wireshark, only use this many files and this much space for all of these scans that people are going to be firing off on this system. And so that's really great. And then Nmap, a lot of you, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Nmap. If you use XI, that's the bones of the auto-discovery component. But it's a great network scanning tool. You can do active scans and just say, right now I want to scan this particular subnet with these particular parameters. Or you can schedule scans to just happen automatically. So once every 2 hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, scan this particular subnet, show me the data. And there's also a bunch of profiles built in. And those are really great. You really don't have to know how to use all of the flags to set parameters for an Nmap scan. There's just built-in options like quick scan plus, intense scan, stuff like that. So even somebody brand new to Nmap, well, on one hand, they've got access to really quickly and easily do deep scans of the network. On the downside, they've got really quick and easy access to do deep scans of the network. So grain of salt, but it's really cool to be able to just do that. And I really think, kind of as was my experience, for someone who knows these tools, they're going to have a ton of value. You're going to go, oh, that's awesome. They're built right in. I could use all this stuff. But for somebody who's not really well-versed in them, this is an excellent introduction, too. So it's a great kind of training ground for Wireshark and Suricata and Nmap. Today at 10:30 in track 2, there is Wireshark, Nmap, and Suricata talk with Tyler Larson. He was one of the developers that did a ton of work on Network Analyzer. And so he'll be doing a talk about those integrations and about that process if you want to dig into that a little bit more. And here's the light theme as well. Now, the dark theme, I feel like it's like Blade Runner. You know, it's like the dark street future, the neon street future. The light mode is more like Arizona iced tea, Southwest, you know? But I really like it. It's funny. I had been using dark mode for at least a month, maybe 6 weeks as I was documenting everything that was happening. And I hadn't even thought of light mode. And I flipped to it just like, oh, I'll check out light mode. And I was just in stunned silence for 5 seconds. I couldn't quite compute what I was seeing. But then as soon as I got used to the complete paradigm shift in what I was seeing, I started to really like it. I know sometimes maybe with the light mode, there's a tendency to just go, well, it's got a white background, so that's the light mode, everything's good. But I know a lot of thought was put into the palette that was used to make it look cool and differentiate it from the dark mode, but to make sure that they were cool colors. So I'm really happy with it. Hopefully all of you, the people that will be using it, like those too. But there is a light theme in Network Analyzer, and that is it. So Nagios Fusion. This will be close to the finale. Nagios Fusion is a really cool tool. It provides you with centralized visibility of what's happening across a bunch of Nagios servers. Core and XI are what it's most commonly used for. But it also has hooks for log server and hooks for network analyzer. And it's awesome. It's the one thing that this year hasn't gotten a huge overhaul, but that's in the works. Like the Fusion is going to be evolving as well. A lot of you that might be using one of the site-wide packages, Fusion is included, so you might already be familiar with it. If you've got a bunch of XI servers, a bunch of Core servers, they're peppered all over data centers all over the world, and you want one place where you can see what's going on, Fusion is exactly the tool that's going to be of value. Oh, wrong way. That's not Fusion. Could be someday, but not yet. All right, so here's an example of a Fusion dashboard. And this is showing a ton of cool data. So it's got basic information about the status of your Fusion server itself. It's got host health and service health summaries for a few different servers. In this one, it's pretty basic, but I've got a couple of XIs plugged in, a network analyzer, a log server. Information about open problems. This is one of the network analyzer hooks. So we've got a bandwidth graph from network analyzer's flow data collection that's produced. And then probably one of my favorites is the BPI status dashlet. So you can have BPI on 10 different Nagios servers, intelligently monitoring what's going on with complex processes, and then bubble that up to Fusion and have quick insight into what's going on in your BPI groups right here. Another cool thing it offers is if you're using XI, it provides a click-through capability. And it also has user mapping built in. So if you've got a user that can only see a particular host group on an XI server at a location, you map their Fusion user to that XI user, and what they see in Fusion is limited by that. And they're also able to click through, so I could go, okay, user count on this system, let's see what's going on. You click through, and you're bounced right into the XI interface, and can then start to look at the deeper data on the XI side. So that's really cool. Aiden Coyle, we call him the Fusion Commander. He loves Fusion. He's the lead developer on Fusion, and some work has gone into it. Like, it's gotten releases over the year. It's been improved. There's been fixes have been happening, but it hasn't quite gotten like the massive, dramatic overhaul that the other tools have yet. But Aiden will be in track 3 today at 1:40. He'll be talking about why Nagios Fusion, and he is. There's not a lot of them around the world, but he is a Fusion enthusiast. So he'd be a really good one to check out if you want to learn more about Fusion and really dig into that. So that's Fusion. Not a ton to say, but the thing that it does is extremely valuable. And actually, speaking to Aiden's talk, he's got some big plans for it. So I don't know exactly where it's going to go. I don't know exactly what's going to change. But there's a lot of potential and a lot of currently untapped potential in Fusion that he's really excited to start considering and rolling in and making it even cooler. And to me, you know, I don't have a massive global data center deployment and millions of hosts and things, so I can't really get a lot of use out of its ability to combine a bunch of XIs, but I really like Fusion just for its ability to give me a centralized single pane of glass for my log server, my network analyzer, and my Nagios servers. So even just in that context, it's got a lot of value, even beyond if you've just got a bunch of Nagios servers all over and want to see them in one place. So that's Nagios Fusion. And now we'll talk a little bit about docs. So as I said at the beginning, basically no stone has gone unturned this year. Like, we've just been looking under every rock and trying to improve everything that we can see, which has been a really cool time to be here. And a big part of that was documentation. Very early in the year, we had a project that I began to refer to as Docageddon, because it was a complete overhaul of every technical document we have, moving them all to a new template, a new modern, cool-looking template, moving them from ODTs to Word files, and exporting new PDFs of them, getting them on the internet, and also making sure that the links worked, and starting to do tech review on them, and actually make sure that the technical documentation leads you down a functional and useful technical path, which is a really cool thing. And so to give every one of them a look was a massive undertaking of a huge team, and it was really cool now to be on the other side of it and have all of that done, and hopefully it ends up being a lot of value for people using the tools too. So that was a huge part of it, massive update of over 500 PDFs. I've started to try to maintain and cultivate the admin guides more. They've been updated as new things happen and new things change, but I think it had been a little while since somebody really went in with a fine-tooth comb and started to organize things, make sure that all the documentation, links, and everything were just right. So it's an ongoing process. I'll probably never be done, but I think they've come a long way in the time that I've been working on them. And then the Nagios library. If you visit the Nagios library, you'll probably have noticed that it's just gotten a complete overhaul, not only visually, but in terms of the content. Like, you're gonna start seeing a very steady stream of content and hopefully useful stuff happening. So a bunch of people are working on articles. Part of what I get to do is not only writing them, but also reviewing other people's work and trying to make sure everything's great. But yeah, the library is really blown up. And now we've got the new Beta KB. And that is a complete overhaul of the KB. I guess I'm getting old because I feel like at home and cozy in the old KB. You know, I look at it, I'm like, oh, there's no place like home, the old knowledge base. But it's definitely starting to look dated, and it needed to be overhauled. And this that we're looking at here is the new KB. So instead of support.nagios.com/KB, now it is at library.nagios.com/docs. And this is what it looks like. And I actually made this into a video. The cool thing about it is that it's modern, not just in how it looks, but in how it works. Because I don't know if any of you have ever done a search on the old KB, but it wasn't the greatest search interface. It could take a long time to get you data. It might give you some wacky results. But in the new KB, which I will show you right here, it is lightning fast and relevant. So here we're going to search for, I think, Core Install Guide. So boom, and you can see everything's just live updating in the moment, showing you this stuff. So it's very quick. This is still a beta, I'll mention that. So this isn't like the official KB yet. We're still cultivating it. We're still trying to make sure that all of the formatting and stuff is nice and looks good and that all the right data is there and stuff. But everything that's on the old KB has been shuffled over, and more the new stuff that we create, the new KB articles we create, are going to end up being here. So definitely keep your eye on this and start to use this as your KB resource. The old one will probably live forever, but this is where the new stuff will be happening. And it's just so cool to do a KB search and get results so fast is really nice. And Aiden, the Fusion commander, who's doing the talk later, he had a huge part in creating this, so that was really cool. And then the Nagios Exchange, which I highlighted earlier, that's brand new. This bullet wasn't here until last week, but the KB or the Exchange got a huge overhaul. It's a whole new site, and it's got this really cool 3D cube graphic. So that's probably my favorite part of the change so far. So that is a quick overview of the Nagios solutions. Hopefully it had a little bit of value for you and helping you see what it all does, how it all connects, how it all works together, and what has changed in this huge year of 2025. I believe that is everything. And now I would like to open it up to questions. So if there's anything you're wondering about that I might be able to help with, I'd love to. Mr. Lloyd.
So I have a question that is probably actually better suited for the talk that's going to be next door next. But sure. I figure it might have a wider audience here. So with, Shamas, it might not be directed to you specifically. We'll find out.
Sure.
So with the new network analyzer, do you know if there is any kind of migration path to keep existing data in the new network analyzer?
As far as I know, at this particular moment, it won't be any kind of an inline upgrade. It's going to be a fresh install of NNA. I don't know, Shandor, you might. Is there any consideration of well, one thing is that typically with the flow data, you're not keeping, at least the historical data, very long, but that's not always the case. But yeah, actually, Shandor, you might know if there's a migration consideration.
Right now, in the current beta, we don't have a migration path currently.
Hey, Shandor, 1 second. Let's get you on the mic.
Right now, in the beta release, we don't have a migration path, but we will definitely have that before we release the product.
Nice.
It is in consideration. We just didn't have time with everything we were doing to get
No
it
worries.
done by now.
Thank you.
Well, you had weeks to develop it. What were you guys doing? Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
Do we have any other questions for Shamas? A very thorough presentation. Thank you so much, Shamas. How about a nice big round of applause?